Hi, I'm Christian Lloyd Espinoza and I will be reporting about the 8-step communication planning model. Communication is very essential, especially in the context of development work, the benefits of which include forming consensus among stakeholders, establishing realistic timelines, identification of needed resources, management of responsibility assignment, channel planning, risk identification, and formulation of success matrices. Without a sound communication strategy, development organization may miss out on a lot of opportunities like getting more traction and support for their projects. Because communication is an indispensable component for development workers and organizations, it is but natural that various communication tactics are carried out. These could be in the form of press releases, social media information drive, brochure distribution, etc., all geared towards promoting the initiative or program. These usual run-of-the-mill comms tactics could result to much greater positive impact if there is a communication blueprint to follow. A comprehensive plan serves as a strategic roadmap for a development organization's communication activities. This is essential to get people interested, hold people's attention, establish and develop partnerships, efficiently save time and resources, and ensure sustainable growth of development programs and initiatives. It is important to note that there is no single way to create a communication plan, but I'm here to discuss to you the 8-step communication planning model, which is what is used and endorsed by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration under the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, the Federal Emergency Management Agency under the U.S. Department of Homeland and Security, among others. This model, as a tool, allows the creation of a site-specific, actionable communication plans which can be utilized at any point in a grant cycle. The theoretical basis of this model is derived from social marketing and commercial marketing techniques to influence people to take recommended action or make positive changes in their lives. Let us now take a closer look at this model. It is highly encouraged that all stakeholders, including the evaluators and partners, should be involved in crafting the communication plan for sustainability. Using this model, we start with a thorough assessment of the current situation as well as the challenges we face as we move towards sustainability. In other words, a reality check. This involves an honest and objective look at where we are right now, answering both the facts and the intangibles surrounding the program or initiative. Asking the right questions is key to this process, which will lead us to identify our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Coming up with a SWOT analysis will lead us to a better understanding of our current objective reality insofar as the development program or initiative is concerned. As an example, let us consider the Waste Management Program initiative of my class in NSTP 1 to mobilize informal settlers in a local adopted community. Now that we're done with our SWOT analysis, we proceed to the second step, to set communication goals and objectives. The primary purpose of this is to articulate our intended accomplishments in ways that are measurable. Because effective communication is crucial to the success and sustainability of our programs, appropriate and measurable communication goals are imperative. But what characteristics make for a strong goal? Well, they generally meet these criteria. Realistic. If you can't envision success in the goals you have written, there's a good chance those goals are not realistic. To assess the viability of proposed goals, we must consider our available resources or potential sources. Measurable. Our goals have to be framed such that we'd be able to tell and verify whether we have succeeded. Using specific language instead of general language is key to this. Don't say, convince locals to enroll in the skills training course. Instead, quantify the outcome we want. Persuade 10 locals to enroll in the skills training course before the end of the third quarter. This way, we can easily quantify and measure our success. Compel to action. Raising awareness is an important component, but the ultimate goal should be to change behavior and compel our audiences to take specific actions. Since it is impossible to sustain every program, we must focus on those functions we and our partners have identified to sustain. Overstretching will get us no results. Let's take a look at our example from the Waste Management Program project of my NSTP students. Now that we have identified our communication goals and objectives, we move on to step 3. The purpose of this is to identify all potential audience segments for each communication goals we have set. It is important that we identify which specific sector or segment we need to prioritize for each separate goal and learn as much as possible about them. Breaking down general audiences into segments will give us a better idea in crafting specific messages and materials for them. Different actors have different interests, which can be tapped for our programs, and sensitivities we should be aware of to avoid any possible rejection. Next, we must prioritize which audience segment should we focus our communication efforts on and for what particular goal and objective. Finally, we have to learn as much as we can about their values, characters, priorities, how best to approach them, what their concerns are about our program, etc. The only way for us to ascertain that our messages would be effective is if it resonates with our intended audiences, compelling them to think, feel, or act in ways that support our communication goals. Messages can be informative or persuasive, or they can be both. In developing our messages, we have to note that it is not what we want to tell them that matters, but what they can hear. So, we have to frame our messages in a way that will be well received by the intended audiences by tapping into their values. Our audience will want to know what's in it for them, and so it helps to be able to clearly define this in terms that will make sense to them. As we said, different audience segments have different values and interests. Our audience will probably have some reservations and doubts which we need to address in our message. This is where our audience profile in step 3 comes handy, as it will help us keep our focus on the audience's needs and preferences as we formulate the language of our message. For example, the local barangay officials may be receptive to the idea of setting up a pilot local recycling plant, but reluctant to provide seed money for the program, and that is a barrier. We can probably set the tone of our message to barangay officials to convey the prestige of piloting such a program in the city, and that it will be a public-private partnership so the financial cost is not overwhelming. A compelling message should lead people to action. This call to action may not be necessarily one that moves mountains. An act as simple as introducing us to possible supporters or providing a venue for a meeting is already a contribution to the cause, which would gradually grow as we garner successes over time. Before we even design materials and activities, we have to make sure that our messages really do resonate with our target audience. We can do this by pre-testing it with just a few members of our intended audiences. Ask for their feedback and use this feedback to adjust our message. This way, we can be confident that the materials we produce will not be for naught. After crafting a compelling message tailored for each target audience, we then identify the most appropriate avenues for delivering our messages. Here, we go back to our work in step 3 and review how to best deliver our message effectively and ensure that our communication will be considered to be culturally appropriate, delivered to our intended audiences in a timely manner, aligned with our budget and resources, and tailored to our intended audience's overall perceptions about our program. How frequent and in how many ways should we deliver our message? Well, as frequent and as many as necessary. Resources and resource mobilization considering. This worksheet could serve as a template for this purpose. Step 6 is to develop an action plan to determine where, when, and how each task will be done to successfully implement our communication plan. Without this, our communication plan won't see the light of day. Action plans, whether complex or simple, should have the following essential information: major activities and tasks, intended date of completion, and person responsible for ensuring that the task is done. To ensure that our materials resonate with intended audiences before they are produced and distributed, pre-testing is a must, as is the same principle we discussed in Step 4. Pre-testing helps us identify whether our messages and materials have any major flaws, explore alternative messages and materials, and fine-tune our messages and materials. It can practically save us from making costly mistakes. Developing communication materials is typically done in a 4-step process. 1. Develop prototype. 2. Review and pre-test. 3. Revise and refine. And 4. To produce the material. Pre-testing can be done via survey, focus group discussions, one-on-one interviews, and advisory boards. And finally, in Step 8, we determine if the plan is meeting our communication goal and, if not, to make the appropriate and timely modifications to ensure success. The date, frequency, and method of evaluation have to be predetermined. A feedback mechanism is likewise imperative to monitor our plan's success and make the appropriate modifications as we go along. Our goals in Step 2 will help us determine if our plan is working accordingly. There you have it, the 8-step communication planning model.